The alarm system screamed across the Throne of Stars station. Red lights flashed in every corridor and every screen showed the same impossible message. Unknown vessel detected at close range. Admiral Tavin Rel stood frozen at his command post. For 3,000 years, nothing had come this close to the Imperial capital without permission. The defense network was perfect. Hundreds of sensor arrays watched every approach. Thousands of automated weapons waited for any threat. Entire fleets patrolled the outer system. Yet somehow a human warship sat less than 2 million kilometers away. The ship appeared on the main display. It was small compared to Velnar battlecruisers, maybe 1/10 the size. The design was strange, with odd angles and a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The identification code broadcast clearly: UHNS Quiet Storm, Unified Human Navy. Tavin's hands shook as he gripped the console. "How?" he whispered. "How did it get here?" Ansor Master Crix worked frantically at his station, reviewing sensor logs from the past 6 hours. His 4 eyes moved rapidly across multiple screens. "Admiral, there is nothing in the records. No gravitational distortion. No energy signature. No quantum wake. The vessel simply was not there, and then it was." "That's impossible," Tavin said. "Check again." "I have checked 17 times, Admiral. The logs are empty." On board the Quiet Storm, Captain Lee Minho sat calmly in his command chair. His bridge crew worked in near silence, each person focused on their task. The only sounds were the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep of a console. "Status report," Minho said quietly. Lieutenant Commander Choi Yuna looked up from her station. "Stealth systems operating at 97% efficiency. We are visible to their sensors now, but only because we chose to be. The coding is holding perfectly." "Good. Helm status?" Ensign Park Jiwoo checked his controls. "All maneuvering thrusters ready. Jump drive charged to 80%. "We can leave any time you order, Captain." Minho nodded. He looked at the tactical display showing the Velnar station and the homeworld below it. 3 weeks ago, the Quiet Storm had entered Velnar space at the outer edge of their territory. They had traveled through the most defended region in the known galaxy, passing sensor networks, patrol fleets, and automated defense stations. Not once had they been detected. The journey had been slow and careful. Chief Engineer Kang Doyen had monitored every system constantly, making tiny adjustments to keep their stealth field stable. Communications specialist Huang Mirai had listened to enemy transmissions, learning their patrol patterns and communication protocols. Defense Coordinator Nam Sujin had plotted their course through gaps in the sensor coverage that the Velnar didn't even know existed. And now they were here, at the heart of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "Captain," Yuna said, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the system. They're mobilizing their fleet." "How many ships?" "At least 50 warships changing course toward us. More are launching from the orbital docks." Minho allowed himself a small smile. "Right on schedule." "Tactical Officer Bei, are you recording everything?" Tactical Officer Bei Hyunwoo nodded without looking away from his screens. "Every sensor reading, every communication, every movement. We'll have a complete picture of their response protocols." On the Throne of Stars, Tavin barked orders to his subordinates. "All available ships are to converge on the intruder immediately. Authorization code Crimson Dawn. I want that human vessel destroyed or captured within the hour." Ships throughout the inner system changed course. Cruisers, destroyers, and fighter squadrons all turned toward the small human vessel. The pride of the Velnar Empire, ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds, raced to eliminate this insult to imperial power. Tavin watched the tactical display as his forces closed in. The human ship remained motionless, as if waiting for them. "Why aren't they running?" he muttered. "Perhaps they know they cannot escape," suggested his second-in-command. "Or perhaps they want us to think that," Crix said nervously. "Admiral, I recommend extreme caution. If they penetrated our defenses this easily, they may have other capabilities we don't understand." Tavin waved away the concern. "They're only human. One ship against the entire home guard. The outcome is certain." 6 months ago, the Velnar Empire had destroyed 3 human colonies in a demonstration of power. The humans had been expanding too quickly, claiming worlds the Empire considered its territory. The attack was meant to teach them their place in the galactic order. 12 Velnar warships had reduced the colonies to rubble, killing millions. The Empire expected surrender. They expected pleas for mercy. Instead, they received silence. No response, no negotiation, no retaliation. The humans simply went quiet. Until now. Minho watched his tactical display as the Velnar ships approached. Time to closest vessel? 11 minutes, Hyunwoo reported. Engine status? Doyen's voice came through the intercom from engineering. Jump drive at full charge. Stealth systems ready to engage. Just give the word, Captain. Minho waited. He counted the approaching ships. 52 now, with more launching every minute. The Velnar were committing everything they had in the immediate area. Perfect. Captain, they're opening fire, Hyunwoo said calmly. Long-range missile salvos. Impact in 40 seconds. Countermeasures? Already deployed. Decoy drones are active. The missiles streaked through space, tracking what they thought was the human ship. Instead, they hit dozens of small drones that had been quietly released over the past 10 minutes. Each drone projected a false sensor image identical to the quiet storm. The missiles exploded harmlessly against empty space and cheap decoys. On the throne of stars, confusion spread through the command center. Sir, missile strike showed no effect. The target is still there. Fire again. All batteries. More missiles launched along with energy beams from the closest ships. The human vessel remained still, seemingly unconcerned by the firepower converging on its position. Then, just as the Velnar fleet came within visual range, the quiet storm vanished. One moment it was there on every sensor. The next moment, nothing. The space where it had been was empty, as if the ship had never existed. Tavan stared at his screens in disbelief. Where did it go? Find it. Scan everything! Alarms began sounding from different stations throughout the command center. Admiral, we have a new detection. The human vessel is near the primary shipyards. That's impossible. That's 15 million kilometers from here. Confirmed, sir. Same identification code. The quiet storm is... The officer paused. Sir, it's gone again. New contact at Defense Station 7. Contact lost at Defense Station 7. New detection at the communication hub. The reports kept coming. The human ship appeared, stayed visible for a few seconds, then disappeared. Each time it showed up in a different location, always somewhere important, always well inside the defense perimeter. Minho smiled as he watched the chaos unfold through their intercepted communications. Helm, take us deeper into the system. Next target, the orbital shipyards. Let's give them something to really worry about. The quiet storm slipped through space like a ghost, invisible to the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. Behind them, the entire Velnar home guard scrambled in confusion, chasing shadows and false contacts. The mission had begun. Emperor Zalvex the Infinite stood in his private war room, staring at the holographic display that showed his empire's capital system. He had ruled for 240 years, expanded his territory across hundreds of worlds, and commanded fleets that made entire species surrender without a fight. Never in all that time had he felt what he felt now, genuine fear. The hologram showed the current positions of his ships. They were scattered across the inner system, chasing a single human vessel that appeared and disappeared like a phantom. His military commanders, the finest strategists in the Empire, looked like fools, and the entire galaxy was watching. How many times has this human ship been detected? He asked his advisors. Supreme Counselor Nex checked his datapad. 47 times in the past 8 hours, Your Majesty. Each appearance lasted between 5 and 12 seconds. And how many times have we successfully engaged it? Nex hesitated. 0 times, Your Majesty. Zalvex's claws scraped against the metal console. 47 chances. 0 successes. And you expect me to believe our military is competent? The technology they possess is unlike anything we've encountered, said military advisor Threx. Our scientists theorize they've developed some form of quantum phase shifting that allows them to... I don't care about theories, Zalvex shouted. I care about results. Do you understand what this means? 3 human colonies we destroyed as a lesson, and this is their response. Not a fleet, not an invasion, but a single ship that makes us look powerless. The room fell silent. Everyone present understood the implications. The Velnar Empire maintained control through a carefully cultivated image of invincibility. Subject species obeyed because they believed resistance was hopeless. If one human ship could penetrate the capital system at will, that image was shattered. Your Majesty, Nex said carefully, perhaps we should consider opening diplomatic channels. The humans have demonstrated their capability. They could have attacked multiple targets but chose not to. This may be an opportunity for what? Negotiation? We don't negotiate with humans. They are beneath us. With respect, Your Majesty, the human ship currently making our fleet look incompetent suggests otherwise. Zalvex glared at his Supreme Counselor but said nothing. Nex was right, and they both knew it. Aboard the Quiet Storm, Tactical Officer Bei Hyunwoo prepared for their most audacious maneuver yet. His screens showed the Imperial Palace and its dedicated defense fleet. 12 heavy cruisers surrounded the station at all times, never leaving their posts. This was the Emperor's personal guard, the elite of the elite. Captain, Hyunwoo said, I've calculated an approach vector that should minimize our exposure to their weapons. We'll come in from the shadow of the moon HFY, appear at 80,000 kilometers from the palace and hold position for 12 seconds. That's long enough to be clearly identified but short enough to escape before their weapons lock. Captain Lee Minho studied the tactical plot. It was risky. The palace guard wouldn't be tired or confused like the rest of the fleet. They would be fresh, alert, and very motivated to protect their emperor. What are our odds if they manage to get a weapons lock? He asked. Defense Coordinator Nam Soo-jin ran the calculations. Depends on what they use. Energy weapons we can handle for maybe 15 seconds with our shields. Kinetic missiles are more dangerous. If they saturate the area with smart projectiles, our point defense might be overwhelmed. So we can't let them get that lock. Correct, Captain. Minho looked around his bridge. His crew had performed flawlessly throughout this mission. They had trusted his orders, executed impossible maneuvers, and never hesitated. Now he was asking them to fly directly toward the most dangerous target in the system. Lieutenant Commander Choi, he said, can the stealth systems get us in position undetected? Choi Yuna checked her displays. Yes, Captain. We're currently running at 68% power reserves. The approach will cost us another 5%, and the escape jump will take 8%. That leaves us enough for the journey home. Chief Doyon, how are the engines? The engineer's voice came through the intercom. Running hot but stable. The cooling systems are keeping up. We can do this, Captain. Minho took a deep breath. Communications Specialist Huang, prepare a message to broadcast on all frequencies when we arrive. I want every ship, station, and listening post in the system to hear it. Huang Mirai's fingers moved across her console. What should the message say, Captain? Keep it simple. Peace remains possible. The choice is yours. The crew exchanged glances. That message would change everything. It wasn't a threat, wasn't a demand, just a statement of fact delivered from a position of demonstrated capability. Navigation Officer Shin, Minho said, take us in. Silent running until we're in position, then light up every sensor in the system. I want the Emperor to see us clearly. The Quiet Storm changed course, moving silently through space toward the Imperial Palace. They passed through gaps in the patrol routes, slipped between sensor nets, and approached from an angle the Velnar had never thought to properly defend. Their stealth systems worked perfectly, bending light and energy around the hull, making them invisible to the watching eyes of the Empire. In his war room, Emperor Zalvex was reviewing damage reports from his ego more than his fleet when the alarms began. These were different from the alerts that had been sounding all day. These were the palace's personal defense alarms, the ones that had never sounded in 300 years of peace. Your Majesty, shouted an officer, the human vessel has appeared directly between the palace and HFY. Zalvex spun to look at the hologram. There it was, a small ship hanging in space exactly where his ceremonial military parades occurred. The symbolism was devastating. The humans had not only reached the capital system, but had come to the Emperor's doorstep. All palace guard vessels engage immediately, he commanded. The 12 heavy cruisers moved as one, their weapons charging with lethal energy. They were the best crews in the Empire, trained for exactly this scenario, and they reacted with perfect coordination. But even perfect coordination takes time. On the Quiet Storm, alarms sounded as weapons locks began forming. Multiple targeting sensors active, Hyunwoo reported. They're fast. We have maybe 10 seconds before they can fire. Broadcast the message now, Minho ordered. Huang Mirai activated the transmission. On every frequency and every military and civilian band, the message went out in perfect Velnar. Peace remains possible. The choice is yours. For 12 seconds, the human ship sat visible to the entire capital system. Every sensor recorded its position. Every camera captured its image. The Emperor himself watched it through the palace windows, seeing with his own eyes the vessel that had humiliated his empire. Then, just as the palace guards' weapons reached firing solution, the quiet storm vanished. The space where it had been exploded with energy beams and missile contrails, but the human ship was already gone. It had jumped to a position 10 million kilometers away, then jumped again, then again, executing a series of rapid transitions that left no trail to follow. Navigation Officer Shin Junho executed the escape sequence with flawless precision. Each jump took them to pre-calculated coordinates, changing direction and velocity in ways that made tracking impossible. Behind them, the Velnar fleet scrambled to follow, but they were always too slow, always too late. Emperor Zalvek stood in silence, watching the empty space where the human ship had been. His advisors waited for his response, none of them daring to speak first. Finally, Nax broke the silence. "Your Majesty, the message they broadcast—" "I heard it," Zalvek said quietly. His voice had lost its imperial thunder. He sounded tired and old. "Peace remains possible. The choice is yours." "It could be interpreted as an offer of negotiation," Nax suggested carefully. "It could also be interpreted as a threat," said Threx. "They're saying they could have attacked but chose not to. They're demonstrating mercy while simultaneously proving they don't need to show mercy." Zalvex turned to his Supreme Counselor. "What do you recommend?" Nax chose his words carefully. "Your Majesty, we have two options. We can continue the current path, which means more conflict with an enemy who has proven they can reach us at will, or we can accept their implied offer and open negotiations. Negotiations would be seen as weakness, perhaps, but continuing to look foolish while chasing a ship we cannot catch is also weakness, and the entire galaxy is watching." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Everything he had built his reign upon was being challenged. The absolute power, the unquestioned superiority, the divine right to rule, all of it suddenly seemed fragile. "Contact the human diplomatic channels," he said finally, not as surrender but as renewed discussion of territorial boundaries. Next bowed. "A wise decision, Your Majesty," but they both knew the truth. The galaxy had changed in the past 8 hours. The Velnar Empire was no longer invincible, and humanity was no longer prey. The message had been delivered, received, and understood. Far from the capital system, the quiet storm continued its journey home. The crew monitored their systems, making repairs where needed, but the mood on the bridge was quiet satisfaction. They had accomplished the impossible and survived to tell about it. The battle that followed the quiet storm's appearance at the Imperial Palace would be studied in military academies for generations, not because it was large or particularly destructive, but because it demonstrated something the Velnar Empire had never truly understood. That superior technology means nothing without the creativity to use it properly. Admiral Taven Rel committed everything he had. Every ship in the Home Guard received orders to converge on the human vessel's last known position. The Emperor demanded results, and Taven knew his career, perhaps his life, depended on delivering them. The human ship appeared again, this time between the palace and SciFiPrime's moon. It didn't hide this time. It sat there, visible to every sensor, broadcasting its position openly. It was a challenge and an invitation. "All ships weapons-free," Taven ordered. "Saturate the target zone. I don't want a single atom of that ship to survive." 43 warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams capable of cutting through planetary crust lanced through space. Kinetic impactors that could destroy cities launched by the hundreds. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds activated at full power. Hunter-killer drones swarmed forward like angry insects. Space around the quiet storm became a storm of destruction that would have vaporized any conventional vessel in seconds. But the quiet storm was not conventional defense. Coordinator Nam Sujin's hands moved across her console with practice speed. She had trained for this moment in 1,000 simulations. Point defense lasers tracked and destroyed incoming missiles. The ship's shields, using technology the Velnar hadn't seen before, formed a bubble that dispersed energy weapons across its surface, rather than absorbing them at single points. Decoy drones launched from hidden bays, each one projecting a sensor signature identical to the quiet storm. Within seconds, the Velnar gunners were tracking not one target but 1,000. Their sophisticated targeting systems couldn't tell which was real and which was fake. Their missiles exploded against decoys. Their energy beams hit empty space. Shields holding at 72%, Sujin reported calmly. Point defense systems operating within normal parameters. Decoy network fully deployed. Captain Lee Minho watched the tactical display with professional detachment. This was the critical moment. The Velnar had committed their full strength, and now he would show them why human engineering had taken a different path than theirs. Activate reactive armor, he ordered. The outer hull of the Quiet Storm began to shift. The armor wasn't static metal like Velnar ships used. It was a living system, composed of thousands of interlocking plates that could move and adjust in response to damage. When an energy beam struck, the affected plates would ablate away, carrying the heat and energy with them. New plates would slide into position from beneath, maintaining hull integrity. It was a human innovation, born from centuries of dealing with limited resources. When you couldn't build bigger ships with thicker armor, you learned to build smarter ships with adaptive defenses. A particularly powerful energy beam struck the ship's port side. The reactive armor responded instantly. 36 plates superheated and blew away, taking the energy with them. Fresh plates locked into place. The ship's computers calculated the threat angle and adjusted armor density in real time, thickening defenses where attacks concentrated. Armor regenerating normally, Chief Engineer Kang Doyen reported from engineering. We're losing mass but maintaining integrity. At current damage rates, we can sustain this for approximately 14 minutes before armor reserves are depleted. 14 minutes. Against the full might of the Velnar Home Guard, a human ship 1/10 their size could survive for 14 minutes. It was unthinkable to the Velnar commanders watching the battle. How is this possible? Tavin whispered, watching his weapons fail to destroy the small vessel. We're hitting it. The sensors confirm impacts. Why won't it die? Ensor Master Crix analyzed the data flowing from the battle. Admiral, their defensive systems are completely different from ours. We designed our ships to resist damage through brute force, thick armor, powerful shields. The humans designed their ship to adapt to damage, to redirect and deflect rather than simply absorb. Then increase firepower, overwhelm their adaptations. We're already firing at maximum capacity, Admiral. The battle continued for 17 minutes. The Quiet Storm danced through the storm of weapons fire, its AI-assisted navigation making micro-adjustments that kept it in the least dangerous position, moment by moment. When missiles got too close, point defense destroyed them. When energy beams locked on, the ship shifted position by meters, making the beams miss by centimeters. When kinetic impactors threatened, the ship's shields deflected them enough to avoid critical damage. Tactical Officer Bae Hyunwoo coordinated the defensive network with focused intensity. Captain Velnar reinforcements arriving. 3 heavy battle cruisers entering weapons range. They're carrying antimatter torpedoes. Antimatter torpedoes were different. They didn't need to penetrate armor or overcome shields. They just needed to get close. One torpedo could generate an explosion powerful enough to vaporize the Quiet Storm completely. Time to torpedo launch? 90 seconds, Minho nodded. This was always going to be the end of the demonstration. They had proven their point. Now it was time to deliver the final message and leave. Communications Specialist Huang. Broadcast on all frequencies. I want every ship and every station to hear this clearly. Huang Mirai activated the transmission system. Ready, Captain. This is Captain Lee Minho of the Unified Human Navy ship Quiet Storm to all Velnar forces. We have demonstrated our capability to reach your capital system, to approach your Emperor's palace, and to survive your best weapons. We have not attacked your civilians, destroyed your stations, or killed your people. This mission was not about revenge, though you gave us cause for revenge 6 months ago. He paused, letting the words sink in across every military channel in the system. Peace remains possible. The choice is yours. Consider carefully what happens next, because the next human ship that comes here might not be so gentle. Quiet Storm out. The transmission ended, and the Quiet Storm vanished. Navigation Officer Shin Junho executed the escape sequence flawlessly. The ship jumped through 14 waypoints across 4 star systems in 6 hours. Each jump was carefully calculated to be theoretically traceable, but practically impossible to follow. By the time Velnar scouts arrived at each location, the Quiet Storm was already gone. 3 jumps ahead, Admiral Tavin stared at empty space where the human ship had been. His fleet surrounded him, weapons still charged, but there was nothing left to shoot at. He had thrown everything at one small vessel and failed to stop it. "Get me Grand Admiral Vexus," he said quietly. His voice was hollow, defeated. "Tell him the human vessel has escaped, and tell him I recommend immediate revision of all defensive protocols." "Yes, Admiral," his communications officer replied, but they both knew protocols weren't the problem. The problem was that the Velnar Empire had been caught fighting the last war, using old strategies against new threats. They built bigger ships, more powerful weapons, thicker armor. The humans had built smarter ships, adaptive systems, and unpredictable tactics. In his war room, Emperor Zalvex watched recordings of the battle. He saw his ships fire thousands of shots. He saw most of them miss or hit decoys. He saw the few that hit absorbed and dispersed by systems his scientists didn't understand. And he saw the human ship survive against odds that should have been impossible. "Your Majesty," Supreme Counselor next said, "the human captain's message has spread across our communication networks. All of our subject species will have heard it by now." "I'm aware," Zalvex said. "It will have consequences. If humans can defy us, others will wonder if they can too. Then we must ensure they don't try. Send orders to all regional commanders, increase security protocols, strengthen garrisons, and monitor for signs of unrest." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And regarding the humans?" Zalvex was quiet for a long moment. "Contact their diplomatic channels. Inform them the Empire is willing to discuss boundary adjustments and mutual non-aggression protocols." Nex bowed. They both understood what this meant. The Velnar Empire didn't negotiate from a position of equality. The fact that they were negotiating at all was an admission that humanity had proven itself a power that could not be simply crushed. Aboard the Quiet Storm, the crew began assessing damage and making repairs. The ship had taken hits that would have destroyed any previous human vessel. Entire sections of armor were gone. Shield generators were running at reduced capacity, but they were alive and they were heading home. "Captain," Chief Engineer Doyen said over the intercom, "I need 6 hours to complete temporary repairs. Full restoration will require a shipyard, but we'll be combat-capable again within the day." "Good work, Chief. You and your team performed beyond expectations." "We all did, Captain. This ship proved itself today." Minho leaned back in his command chair, feeling the exhaustion finally catch up with him. They had spent weeks in enemy territory, never truly safe, always one mistake away from disaster. But they had completed the mission. The Velnar Empire would never look at humanity the same way again. Lieutenant Commander Choi Yuna turned from her station. "Captain, I'm still monitoring Velnar communications." The 50 Velnar warships arrived at the coordinates expecting a battle. Instead, they found empty space. Not even debris, just nothing. Admiral Tavenrell felt his confidence crumbling like sand. He had been so certain. His ships had surrounded the area, sensors at maximum power, weapons charged and ready, but the human vessel was simply gone. "Expand the search grid," he ordered. "Check for any anomalies, any energy signatures, anything at all." His sensor operators worked frantically, but their instruments showed only normal space. No gravitational ripples, no thermal signatures, no electromagnetic disturbances. The human ship had not jumped to faster-than-light travel because that would leave traces. It had not cloaked itself because true cloaking was impossible according to every known law of physics. Yet it was gone. Then the reports started coming in again. The human ship appeared near the Imperial shipyards, where new battlecruisers were under construction. It stayed on sensors for exactly 8 seconds, then vanished. 3 minutes later it appeared at Defense Station 4, then at the Military Academy on Velra Prime, then at the commercial shipping lanes. Each appearance was brief and precise. The ship showed up long enough to be identified and tracked, then disappeared before any weapons could reach it. The pattern was clear to anyone paying attention. The humans were playing with them. Lieutenant Commander Choi Yuna monitored the stealth systems with total focus. Her screen showed thousands of sensor beams passing through the space around the Quiet Storm. Most of them went right through the ship without detecting anything. The few that did hit the hull were absorbed or redirected by the special coating she had helped design. "Captain, we're at 72% power reserves," she reported. "Each jump cost us approximately 4%. We have maybe 16 more jumps before we need to recharge." Captain Lee Minho nodded. "That's more than enough. Continue the pattern. Make sure they see us at each location." Ensign Park Jiwoo adjusted their course for the next jump. His hands moved smoothly across the controls, executing maneuvers that would have seemed impossible to any Velnar pilot. Human ships were smaller and more agile than their alien counterparts. What the Quiet Storm lacked in size and firepower, it made up for in speed and precision. Next target is the communication hub, Jiwoo said. We'll appear at 15,000 kilometers, broadcast our identification, then jump to the supply depot coordinates. Approved. Execute when ready. The ship flickered back into visible space near the massive communication hub that coordinated all military traffic in the inner system. For 10 seconds, every sensor in the area locked onto them. Then they were gone again, leaving confused operators staring at empty screens. On the throne of stars, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The command center had descended into barely controlled chaos. Officers shouted reports and contradictory orders. Sensor stations reported contacts that disappeared before confirmation. Fleet commanders demanded clear instructions that Taven could not provide. The door to the command center slid open, and Grand Admiral Vexus entered. He was old even by Velnar standards, his scales pale with age, but his eyes were sharp and angry. Explain this disaster, Admiral Rel. Taven straightened. Sir, we are dealing with an unprecedented situation. The human vessel possesses stealth technology, far beyond anything in our intelligence files. One ship, Admiral. One single human ship has penetrated our defenses, made our entire fleet look incompetent, and demonstrated that our capital system is vulnerable. Do you understand the political implications? Yes, sir, but if humans can do this, what stops the Korvax from trying? Or the Threndil Commonwealth, or any of the dozen species we've conquered? We have spent centuries building a reputation of invincibility. This human ship is destroying that reputation with every appearance. Ensor Master Crix spoke up nervously. Grand Admiral, with respect, perhaps we should consider that this is exactly what they want. The human ship is not attacking. It is simply appearing and disappearing. This is a demonstration. Vexus turned his cold gaze on Crix. I am aware of that, Ensor Master. The question is what we do about it. Suggestions? Silence filled the command center. No one had an answer. Aboard the Quiet Storm, communications specialist Huang Mirai listened to the intercepted Velnar communications with satisfaction. She had spent years learning their language and protocols. Now she could understand everything they were saying, often before they even transmitted it in clear text. Captain, you need to hear this, she said, routing an audio feed to Minho's station. The voice of Grand Admiral Vexus came through, speaking to Emperor Zalvex himself. Your Majesty, the situation is under control. We will locate and destroy the intruder shortly. You said that 6 hours ago, Grand Admiral. Yet the human ship continues to mock us. Perhaps you need assistance in this matter? There was a pause. No, Your Majesty. The Home Guard is sufficient, then prove it. I want that ship destroyed or captured by sunset tomorrow. If you cannot accomplish this, I will find someone who can. The transmission ended. Mirai looked at Minho. They're scared, Captain. The Grand Admiral is lying to his Emperor, and the Emperor knows it. Good, Minho said. Fear and confusion are our allies now. How are the other channels? Multiple fleet commanders are pursuing different strategies. Some want to spread out and create a sensor net. Others want to concentrate forces at key locations. They're arguing with each other more than searching for us. Chief Engineer Kang Doyen's voice came through from the engine room. Captain, I need to warn you. We're pushing these systems harder than they were designed for. The stealth field generator is running hot. If we keep this up much longer, we risk a cascade failure. How much longer can we maintain operations? At current usage, maybe another 8 hours. After that, we'll need at least 3 hours to cool down and recalibrate. Minho considered this. 8 hours was enough. The mission plan called for one more major demonstration, then extraction. They had already proven their point. Human space was not defenseless, and the Velnar Empire could be reached. 6 months ago, when the news of the destroyed colonies reached Earth, the rage had been overwhelming. Millions dead, entire worlds reduced to ash, all to prove Velnar's superiority. The human governments had faced a choice: fight a war they would likely lose, or find another way. They chose another way. The Quiet Storm was a prototype, a test of new theories about stealth and electronic warfare. It carried minimal weapons and armor. Its defense was not in firepower, but in being impossible to target. The mission was simple: penetrate to the heart of Velnar space, demonstrate that humanity could strike anywhere, and create doubt about Velnar invincibility. Tactical Officer Bei, Minho said, "Show me the updated enemy positions." Bei Hyunwoo brought up a three-dimensional map of the inner system. Red dots marked Velnar ships and stations. Their movements had become increasingly erratic as they chased the Quiet Storm's false leads. "They've split their forces badly, Captain. The outer defense perimeter is actually weaker now than when we arrived. They're overreacting," said Defense Coordinator Nam Soo-jin from her station. "Every time we appear, they send ships to that location. We've gotten them to spread out so much that they can't concentrate force anywhere effectively." Navigation Officer Shin Junho spoke up. "Captain, I have our extraction route calculated. When you give the order, we can be out of the inner system in under 2 hours, assuming we don't encounter significant resistance." "Not yet," Minho said. "We have one more target to visit. The most important one." He brought up an image on the main screen. It showed a massive structure orbiting the Velnar homeworld, covered in lights and decorated with precious metals. The Imperial Palace, home of Emperor Zalvex himself. "We're going to pay the Emperor a visit," Minho said quietly. "Let's make sure he understands that nowhere is safe anymore." The crew exchanged glances. This was the most dangerous part of the mission. The Imperial Palace had its own dedicated defense fleet, separate from the Home Guard. Going there meant facing fresh ships with fresh crews who hadn't been chasing ghosts for the past 6 hours, but it also meant making a statement that could not be ignored. The message would be clear. Humanity could reach the Emperor himself if they chose to. "All stations prepare for the final demonstration," Minho ordered. "This is what we came here to do." The Quiet Storm adjusted course, slipping silently through the chaos of the Velnar fleet, heading toward the one target that would change everything. 3 days after the Quiet Storm's departure from Velnar space, Emperor Zalvex the Infinite faced a reality that no emperor should ever face. His empire was no longer invincible, and the entire galaxy knew it. Reports flooded in from across Imperial territory. On the border worlds, subject species were holding secret meetings. On conquered planets, resistance groups were becoming bolder. On trade routes, independent merchants were demanding better terms. The demonstration of human capability had created ripples that spread through the empire like cracks through ice. "Your Majesty," Supreme Counselor Nex said during an emergency council session, "we have confirmed communications between human diplomatic channels and 17 different species within our sphere of influence. They are asking questions about human defensive capabilities. Are any of them considering rebellion?" Zalvex asked. "Not yet, but they are reconsidering their positions. The Korvax Assembly has requested a formal review of their tribute obligations. The Threndil Commonwealth has suggested modifications to trade agreements. Even the Plaxians, who have been loyal subjects for 800 years, are asking for greater autonomy." Military Advisor Threx added, "Our intelligence services report increased communication traffic among resistance cells on 14 occupied worlds. They're not coordinating anything yet, but they're talking, sharing information, discussing possibilities." Zalvex closed his eyes. This was the nightmare scenario. Not a military defeat, they could recover from battles lost. This was something worse, the erosion of fear. For 3,000 years, the Velnar Empire had maintained control through the belief that resistance was pointless. One human ship had shattered that belief in less than a day. "What of our own forces?" the Emperor asked. "How has this affected morale?" Threx hesitated. "Mixed, Your Majesty. Some commanders are angry and demanding retaliation. Others are requesting better technology and training. There is also a small but growing faction suggesting we should accept human terms for peace before they demonstrate their capabilities again." "Peace," Zalvex said bitterly. "We destroy 3 of their colonies and they respond by offering peace. It's almost insulting." "Or strategic," Nex suggested. "They could have attacked civilian targets. They chose not to. The human captain's message said peace remains possible. Perhaps they mean it. Or perhaps they're not ready for full war and are buying time to build more ships like the Quiet Storm." Nex nodded. "That is also possible, Your Majesty." Zalvex stood and walked to the window overlooking his capital world. Below him, billions of Velnar citizens went about their lives unaware of how close their empire had come to humiliation. He was responsible for all of them. Every decision he made affected their future. "Open diplomatic channels with the humans," he finally said. "Frame it as a discussion of territorial boundaries. Do not use the word negotiation in any official communications. We are adjusting parameters, not surrendering to demands. Yes, Your Majesty. What terms should we propose? Begin with the pre-conflict borders. The humans keep their existing colonies. We maintain our space. Neither side expands into the other's sphere of influence. Include a mutual non-aggression clause and communication protocols for border incidents. Nex bowed. A reasonable starting position, Your Majesty. Shall I include any mention of reparations for the destroyed colonies? No, we do not admit wrongdoing. But we also do not demand anything from them. This is a reset to neutral relations, not a treaty of conquest. As Nex left to draft the diplomatic messages, Zalvex remained at the window. He was an old emperor now, and he had learned something in his centuries of rule. Sometimes the wisest course was to accept when you had miscalculated. 20,000 light-years away, the UHN's Quiet Storm docked at a secret human shipyard hidden in a nebula. Captain Lee Minho and his crew disembarked to a reception that would never be made public. No medals, no parades, no public recognition. The mission remained classified, known only to the highest levels of human government and military. Admiral Helena Voss of the Unified Human Navy waited at the dock. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. She saluted as Minho approached. Captain. Well done. Minho returned the salute. Thank you, Admiral. The ship performed beyond specifications. The crew performed beyond expectations. I've read your preliminary report. 17 minutes of sustained combat against the Velnar Home Guard. That's remarkable. The Velnar were predictable. They relied on overwhelming firepower rather than tactical adaptation. Our defensive systems were designed specifically to counter that approach. Voss gestured for him to walk with her. They moved through the shipyard, passing crews working on other vessels. Some were conventional warships. Others were prototypes like the Quiet Storm. Experimental designs testing new theories and technologies. The diplomatic channels are active, Voss said. The Velnar have proposed discussions about territorial boundaries and non-aggression protocols. They're trying to save face by not calling it a surrender, but that's what it is. Will the government accept their terms? Most likely. The goal was never to conquer the Velnar. We couldn't even if we wanted to. They still have thousands of ships to our hundreds, but now they know we can hurt them. That's enough to ensure they leave us alone. They stopped at a window overlooking the main construction bay. Inside, workers were assembling something large and complex. Minho could see it was another stealth ship bigger than the Quiet Storm. We're building more? He asked. 6 more vessels based on your ship's design. Improved versions incorporating the lessons learned from your mission. Within 2 years, we'll have a stealth squadron capable of reaching any point in known space. Will that be enough? Voss smiled slightly. Enough for what, Captain? To defeat the Velnar Empire in open war? No, to ensure they never attack us again? Yes, the key is not having the strongest military. The key is making yourself too expensive to conquer. Minho considered this. It was a very human approach to strategy. Not trying to be the biggest or strongest, but being the most troublesome target, making any potential conqueror pay such a high price that conquest became pointless. What about the other species in Velnar space? He asked. The ones asking questions about human defenses? We're being careful about that. Some of them have reached out asking for military assistance or technology transfers. We're declining those requests. This isn't about building an alliance against the Velnar. It's about establishing that humanity is strong enough to be left alone. But the very fact that we demonstrated that strength encourages others to resist Velnar control. Yes, Voss agreed, and that's not our concern. We didn't start a rebellion. We just proved that the Empire isn't invincible. What other species choose to do with that information is their decision. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Voss asked, Your crew, how are they? Exhausted but proud. We spent 3 weeks in enemy territory, always one mistake from death. The stress was considerable. I've recommended extended leave for everyone involved. Approved. You and your crew have earned rest. When you're ready to return to duty, there's a new prototype waiting for its first captain. Faster than the Quiet Storm, better armed, and with stealth capabilities that our engineers say are impossible. Minho smiled. They said that about the Quiet Storm too, and you proved them wrong. That's why I want you for the next project. Across the galaxy, in the halls of power on dozens of worlds, the news of what happened spread through unofficial channels. The Velnar tried to control the narrative, but information has a way of flowing around barriers. Within weeks, most species with access to interstellar communication knew that a single human ship had penetrated to the heart of the Velnar Empire and survived. The interpretations varied. Some saw it as proof that the Empire was weak. Others saw it as evidence that humans possessed advanced technology. A few understood the truth. It wasn't about technology or strength, but about approach and attitude. The Velnar had built their empire on the assumption that bigger was always better. Bigger ships, bigger weapons, bigger fleets. They had forgotten that sometimes the small and clever could defeat the large and strong. Humans had learned that lesson the hard way, through centuries of wars among themselves. They had learned to value adaptability over raw power, creativity over convention, and asymmetric warfare over direct confrontation. On the bridge of the Quiet Storm, now undergoing repairs and upgrades, Chief Engineer Kang Doyen reviewed the damage reports with satisfaction. Every system that failed had taught them something. Every hit they took provided data for improvement. The ship had been designed to learn from combat, and it had learned well. Chief, one of his technicians, called. "The new armor plates are ready for installation. The upgraded version you designed. Good. And the shield generators? 20% more efficient than the originals. We're incorporating the modifications you suggested during the escape sequence." Doyen nodded. The Quiet Storm would return to service stronger than before, and the next ship and the one after that would be stronger still, each generation learning from the previous one, each design incorporating new ideas and solutions. That was the human advantage, he realized. Not any single innovation, but the process of constant improvement.